I've always kept all kinds of exotic animals and studied them and been fascinated by them, the whole world of nature. And when I was a kid, it probably started with a stickleback in a jam jar or a caterpillar in a sweet jar or something. But when I was a little kid, the first exotic pet I ever got from a pet shop was a tiny baby giant prickly stick insect called Fred. Now, Fred lived about a year, which is a reasonably good age for a stick insect. I don't know how old I was, but I was a little kid, and I found him dead one day, or dying at the bottom of his little tank or whatever, and bawled my eyes out. I was told by older people, my auntie, who was like, was into all those kinds of things, she knew about them. It's a year old for an insect, that's a long time, don't worry, But obviously, it didn't take away that sadness. As I got a little bit older as a kid, I lost my granddad, my pap, and one of my nans, and very melancholy, sad times indeed. Probably not just outright grief-stricken, but as you get older, more people you know are going to die, more people you love are going to pass away. My other nan, she lived to be, I think, 2 weeks or so shy of 100 years old, 100. And she was fit, active and healthy well into her 90s. She was jumping over 5-bar gates to escape a stampede of bullocks when we was in Wales once. When she was, I think, 88, she got over that gate quicker than I did. But she said to me, even before then, the trouble with getting old is everyone you love and know, and all your friends, you watch them all die. So it becomes sadder and lonelier as you go on, because you can't get them back. New friends aren't like lifelong friends, that kind of thing. Very, very sad. Quite a tough thing, really. But obviously, being younger when she was telling me that, I just thought, yeah, I suppose it is, Now I'm in my 50s. I'm already sort of getting what she meant. So as we grow up, we expect people older than us to die. If it's the scheme of things, the generation above, technically, are going to die off before we do of old age. I mean, we know now with the way the world is and the diseases and all this and that, we know for sure that's very much not always the case. But in the great scheme of things, it's our expectation. What I think hits you is when you get to the age probably of about 50 or your late 40s, when people your age in your friends group start to die of heart attacks or brain embolisms or cancer, and that, it really sort of hits you. So a week or two ago, a really great friend of mine, now he's in his 70s, he's just died. He was battling cancer 3 times. The first 2 times, if you like, got through it, no problem. Never someone to mope about, even in those times. A real doer, a real traveller, a real worker, grafter, that kind of bloke. Just heard last 2 weeks the 3rd time around, which we knew about, but didn't really worry. He's kind of sent us a message or rang my wife and said, how are you? Well, got the cancer come back, but not going to let it bother me. Not spoken to him for a little while, and he did win this time. And you think he was in his 70s, and if you're watching this in your 25, you think, well, he's old then, weren't he? Fortunately, by the time you get to 50, 60, 70 and so on, you don't feel necessarily, well, you feel old, things ache and hurt. You don't feel like, well, time to die. You feel like the same person inside. You just look in the mirror and you feel old, or you get up in the morning and you feel old, but you don't feel any different in that respect. You don't feel, when you're a man like this, a real doer and grafter, you don't feel your time's up, put it that way. And that's hit us quite hard. It was quite a sudden bit of news we got. Really good friend, really did help me in my life hugely. I owe him a debt of gratitude for sure. But the trouble is, these things build up. So when my nan passed away at nearly 100, I was a big grown-up man. And yeah, several years ago now, and that grief is still there. It doesn't, if you've experienced it, you know what I mean. If you haven't yet, I think what I want to get across in this video is They say time heals. If you're grieving, time heals. And at the beginning, if someone says flippantly to you, time's a great healer, you would probably feel like smashing them in the face. But it is the truth, in so much as long as you can pick yourself up, you might not be able to do that straight away, but you just carry on, keep going, get on with your life. There's only so long moping around can be justified in the grieving process, in as much as it will do you any good. But obviously everyone's time scale is different. So time does heal to a degree, and I think that's it. It does get easier over time once you can get moving again, get some normality back in your life, however that may turn out. But it's always there. And what happens is, as you're getting older, another loved one, friend or family, you lose another one. And the grief, I find, it builds up. It might be subdued and in a box and healed by time, but it does build up. And I can see how people can fall to bits, even if it's for a time in their life. It's such a painful thing. So friends, family, it pops up at unexpected times, and I think that's it for me. I'm an empath, I'm a softie, and as many of you will know, it can be such a random thing that can trigger it off. You know, do we deal with grief? Well, time deals with it. The passage of time makes it easier, but it never goes away. In my head, it's kind of probably gets put in a box somewhere, but the lid doesn't ever quite shut, if that makes sense. Going from friends my age that I used to drink down a pub with, and then losing them at sort of late 40s, early 50s, that's an eye-opener of getting old, definitely. Like, my friends are done. I lost a school friend in his 20s, but he was a school friend that lived around the corner, but a friend as much as, all right, mate, how you doing? He died in an accident, and I found out, and I was like, sad to hear that, but he wasn't a close friend. It was just, oh gosh, it was more sadness and, what a shame and just dreadful thing for his family, but not that lasting thing. Sometimes it's the little things that do trigger it off. So if you're religious and you believe in an afterlife or going to a good place or seeing your loved ones again someday, and you're totally faith and believer, that must be a wonderful thing. And I often think that's the good thing about people that have that deep faith. They have that comfort blanket or comfort. It must be a wonderful thing to think, they've gone to a better place and I'll see them again sometime. As a naturalist, someone that's worked with a lot of animals, even as a hunter, even as a meat eater, I'm afraid I don't have that belief. So it's a real sense of gone forever and a real loss. But you do get little memories, and I think it's a bit of a cliche, but we keep these people alive and in our hearts by thinking about them, even if it's painful, trying to get past the grief and the pain and get into a point where, again, you remember the happy times and happy memories. Because if something bad happens and someone passes, you tend to be for quite a long time hung upon that part of their life or their death, which is not usually the nice bit. So I do think, people are kept alive by the memories, if that makes sense. But little things, people often say, when you see a robin in your garden, it's a loved one coming back to visit you. Do I think that? No, I think it's a little robin in the garden. And to be quite honest, it's probably not the robin that was in the garden last year, because I have a short lifespan being so small and vulnerable. Often the robin that holds a territory in your garden isn't the one that was there last year, the year before, and so on. It's often a fresh one who's got that territory because something happened to the other one, a sparrowhawk, a cat, starvation. But do I think a robin is your loved one coming to say hello? No, but I like the fact that it triggers that memory now when I see one, having heard that saying many, many years ago. Little things, it triggers. We will often say, there's Nan, look, she's come to say hello on a country walk and so on. It just gives you the memory. So in a way they are coming to say hello because it's popped them back in your head. I don't know whether you guys have tips and tricks on dealing with grief. I don't take any pills or anything like that, anything to help with such things. It's just a deep sadness that actually does make me bawl my eyes out, often at the most random times when I wasn't even thinking of that person, but something triggers off that memory, pushes open the lid on that box a little bit more. Sad times, but certainly if you're a younger person, you won't yet realise that saying of the trouble is we're getting older, all your friends and loved ones tend to die off. Those of you, like some of my friends that have lost your parents, I don't know, I haven't, yeah. And there's obviously the flip side of that, which I can't even talk about, which I don't know how people deal with, and I would be a fool and an a-hole to say I can imagine what that's like. I wouldn't even want to imagine what those things are like. But yeah, it's a tough part of living, I guess, is losing. Not an easy one, just something I wanted to talk about. Certainly if you've got that kind of thought process going on right now and that thing going on right now, I don't think, other than drowning it out, which isn't the answer apart from very, very short term, that's very much not the answer. Again, drugs to take the edge off, I think's probably more a better answer, something prescribed and the correct thing if that helps you for sure over a certain time frame. Probably a good thing. I guess I'm kind of lucky. I'm strong enough to cope with the grief that I've had so far, but I haven't had the sort of grief many of you or many people have had. So there's no right or wrong way. No one can tell you how to grieve. That's just absolutely ridiculous. I think people would and do, but that's utterly stupid and ridiculous. We can't tell how someone else a time frame for their grieving process. It will never end. Some people will be flawed and find it very difficult to pick up the pieces for quite a long time. Other people will also they don't seem to care, you might say. They don't seem to care. They're probably dealing with it just as painfully, but in their own way. And their own way might be to pretend or have a facade of it's all okay. So don't judge people on grief. Absolutely not. Anyway, I'll catch you in the next one. I hope it's not something you're going through, but if it is, I guess, really, it probably is I don't know what else there is, other than, say, something that takes the head off. I don't know what else there is other than time, and that's worth nothing at the beginning. Just keep pushing along and deal with it in your own way. But I really do strongly suggest it is not going into a black hole of nothingness forever. You've got to try and push forward. And for sure, I think to take away, the people you have lost will not want you to be sad. That's the irony, isn't it? The absolute people that you love and care for, if they die, the last thing they'd want is for you to be grieving. It's kind of a real irony of the whole situation.